Welcome back. Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And I'm in studio with somebody I really look up to that does a lot of different things. Say, oh, this is a person you should talk to. So then I get on the phone and I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, if I book an interview with her, it may take like forever because she's touched leadership and been in leadership politically, in corporations. So I can only imagine what type of star worth even in community, because when you have access to things, as they say, to much is given, a lot is asked, right? So people are like, yo, can you get this, and this? And in one of those also already being welcome as I'm building this relationship with someone, as I say, corporations, politics in DC, which always definitely touch back over this way. And as I say, corporations, one of the largest in the world. So y'all should already kind of have an idea which one I'm talking about. You're going to find out more. Yeah. Ms. Terry Campbell, how are you today?
I am wonderful, wonderful. Thanks so much for having me over today.
Oh, all love, definitely. And as you got the look, and people know the pendant, and they know it's professional in business. I'm with it. So I always start these Detroit is Different with the family story. How many generations deep is your family to Detroit?
We are 3 generations deep. Grandparents, parents, and me. Well,
okay.
4. I have children.
Okay.
Actually, 5. I've got 2 grandkids.
Okay.
I didn't even think about them.
All right,
yes.
So
we're 5 deep up in here.
Okay, I love it. I love it. It's like, oh man, the whole spectrum.
Yes.
So now I got to go back to the roots. Coming here, where from, and how did they make their way up this way?
Yeah. Let me start with my dad.
Okay.
My dad's people were from Florida and from southern Alabama.
Okay.
So my grandmother was born and raised in Evergreen, Alabama, not far from the border of Florida. She married my grandfather, who was a really handsome dude from Florida.
Right.
They had my dad, but soon after, turbulence hit, like a hurricane hit the marriage. And my grandmother did what a lot of people were doing at the time. She migrated up to Detroit, primarily after an auto industry job. My couple of aunts were here.
Okay.
So, a large number of the family, cousins, uncles, brothers, sisters, ended up in the Metro Detroit area, and quite a few of them worked in and around the auto industry. My grandmother worked at the Turnstead, which was a GM plant down not far from Clark Street, and Michigan Avenue. So that's how Grandma got here. My dad was raised by his mom and his aunt. My aunt lived at the house with my grandmother. They were initially over in what we call Black Bottom on what they call Du Bois Street.
Okay.
And as part of that whole tear-up of that neighborhood, they relocated over to sort of Northwest Detroit. And my dad did high school at Northwestern High School, graduate of Northwestern High School. He was a track dude.
Okay.
Tall and skinny. He said he had to learn to run because he had to run home to get away from the kids that wanted to beat him up.
Hey.
So Mom's family had quite the different story. My mom is a Canadian.
Okay.
And her dad was from the West Indies. He spent his childhood between St. Lucia and Trinidad.
Wow.
Yeah. And at some point, he stowed away on a ship and relocated himself to England. And he lived with West Indians in England, joined the British Navy. And when he was on a merchant ship, or I should say not a merchant ship, but on a Navy ship, he was posted in Ireland for a while, met my grandmother there.
Okay.
My grandmother was a spinster. She was 26 years old and not married.
Okay.
And so her passport labeled her a spinster. That's what we were if we weren't married at 26. Isn't that wild?
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
The two of them got together, lived in England, had a couple of my uncles. They relocated to Canada for a bit and then down to St. Lucia. And what's interesting is back in World War II, a lot of what we are doing now in terms of like kicking people out of our countries, people were doing that all over the world. And so, their family was down in St. Lucia, and at a point, the government just took people and they sent them back to wherever they came from. So they forced my grandparents to leave and go back to Canada.
Wow.
Yeah. And so my mom grew up over in Windsor primarily. as was the custom, for young people back then, the partying was happening over in Paradise Valley and in Detroit. And so my mom met my dad
Okay.
because she hung out with her friends over here in Detroit.
Okay.
My dad was in engineering school at Detroit Institute of Technology, and my mom was in nursing school over in Windsor. So the two of them got married, and she moved over here and raised all four of us over here in Detroit.
Okay.
On the west side.
All right, you answered so many questions of where I would naturally go and buttoned it up, but I still have a couple more things I would love to explore a little bit more of. So as I uplift so much on these Detroit is Difference, as we share so many legacy Black Detroit stories, those migration patterns from Alabama to Detroit and Georgia to Detroit are very strong as it's uplifted. A lot of the train routes go right here, and it connects. So that definitely kind of falls in flow. And you talk about Black Bottom, and then you mentioned Northwestern Detroit, and also me being a Northwestern graduate. Go Colts! Go Colts! So I'm definitely with it. And actually, during that time, I mean, it's been some, in the class of the 40s and 50s, you had some Olympic athletes that were running track at Northwestern, too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There were some other famous people. My dad knew Lily Tomlin when she was a kid here in the metro area. And a lot of really great people came out of the school. I must say, my dad went to the old Northwestern.
Oh, yeah. That's
what I would call the beautiful Northwestern. That school, like Central. I mean, it's just the architecture was so beautiful. That's too bad we lost it, but...
Yeah, I mean, I definitely went to what they consider the new NO, but now it's so old. It's like, what is this? And I'm sure it'll be, it's definitely has some upgrades over time, definitely inside the school. But the canon is something that stayed from old to new, and so many other things that do exist. But shout out to all the Colts in the mix with everything, and so many. The legacy is strong. I was the alumni president for about a decade, so I interacted with many of some of the legends, and more history than you would expect. So in this same space and place, engineering. Your dad found his way into engineering. As I always think, engineers look at how things are designed and really are like, best way of putting it, like problem solvers for like, all right, what can we do with this? So engineer in any organization can be very helpful. Did your dad share what led him in that path?
I don't know that. I think it was just his natural sense of curiosity. And he was a mechanical engineer.
Okay.
And he worked at TankCom for a while out in Warren in, designing tanks and testing tanks and stuff like that. But throughout my life, he was really focused on cars. Dude was always, he was always pulling cars apart.
Okay.
And, as a kid, my dad made us all like little mini bikes, right? He'd grab lawnmowers out of people's trash. People would throw their lawnmower away. They didn't know how to do a simple tune-up. He would grab them, tune up those engines, take those Briggs and Stratton engines off those lawnmowers and make mini bikes for kids in the neighborhood. And he was just always inclined, I had to learn how to change a water pump on a car as a kid, because that's just where my dad was. This is what you did,
That is very...
And I have to tell you, the four of us, I have three brothers and sisters. Of the four of us, three of us are engineers.
Wow.
I mean, three, and my mom was in medicine. She was a nurse. And my oldest brother kind of went that route. He's a PhD in physiology. He's studied biology, physiology, and kind of has been a teacher and that sort of thing at universities. But my dad was growing engineers at our house. I think that was just his inclination.
I can't only imagine, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like you definitely have chores as a child, and definitely back in the day, as I found out in these interviews, sometimes the chores of back in the day could be more what would I say? What's the right term? Strenuous. Than the chores of today. But even whatever day it is, you know what I'm saying? Walking out and it's 10 and you be like, yo, I want to go outside and play after you put this water pump on. It's like, hold on. Like, what are we talking about here?
Right.
So in this space and place, what community do you remember the most as like, this was my neighborhood growing up?
8 Mile, Livernois area. I grew up over there on Woodingham, and like I spent my entire childhood and through my teenage years in the same house. My parents, excuse me, my parents built their own house, of course,
Wow.
because that's how my dad rolled.
Engineering.
Yeah, and it was the house I grew up in, which was really lovely.
Mm.
I just remember it as a great neighborhood, full of kids, and families, and it was the kind of place when we were growing up, you behaved yourself mostly because someone's gonna call your parents or come over to the house and let them know if they saw you misbehaving. So, it was a kinda tight-knit neighborhood with
Okay.
kids and families. My dad was the Boy Scout leader.
Wow.
So, like, he knew all the boys in the neighborhood, and they all knew Mr. Campbell, and, yeah, it was a really cool upbringing. So the west side of Detroit. I went to middle school not far from here,
Okay.
over on Dexter,
Hmm.
and Finkel.
Mm.
When I was a kid, Detroit was experimenting with different approaches, I guess, to how they were gonna deal with busing and integration and all
Mhm.
that, and so they picked up kids from all over the west side, the neighborhood over here in Hope Village and
Mm.
other places, and we all went to school over there, 5th through 8th grade.
Hmm.
I skipped 8th grade. It was a great program. It was kind of a magnet program. They would let you accelerate if you were doing really well in school, so by the time I was leaving 7th grade, I had done all the 8th grade
Wow.
coursework, and we went straight over to Cass. I
Okay.
went to Cass after that. I did a couple years at Cass,
Okay.
which was a trip. We had to catch the bus to school, the Hamilton bus.
Well, 8 and,
Boy.
we definitely thinking like 8 in Livernois.
Yeah.
That could
So,
be a trick. That
yeah,
can be a
you
trick.
either went up to 8 Mile and caught the bus over to Woodward,
Mhm.
took the Woodward bus down, and then walked a couple of blocks back over to Cass, and I went to the old Cass, the pickle factory.
Mm.
Or you walked up to 7 Mile to catch the Hamilton.
Mm.
Anyway, it was really something. I made it almost 3 years at Cass, and then I ended up transferring to Henry Ford.
Okay.
So I kinda remember Henry Ford as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, in that community, I think of more as like the Palmer Woods neighborhood. Would
Yeah.
you still define it like that? And Palmer Woods is certainly, I think, oftentimes, definitely people speak of Sherwood Forest,
Mhm.
and Palmer Woods is next to it. But in the same arc,
I was on the other side of Livernois.
other side of
I was on
Livernois.
the poor side of the
And,
track, so to speak.
But still some real cool housing stock and some
Oh,
cool
yeah.
teachers over that way.
Yeah.
Definitely that community is always one like beloved and welcome for families. And you mentioned
Yeah.
like a lot of young people already kind of over there, and even being a Boy Scout leader. So like as time went on, so I'm sure like a guy wanting to be like, hey, can I take you out? And it's like, ah, man, he knows me.
My dad was, like, everybody knew my dad, but thank goodness I went to Cass for a while because then that opens you up to a whole audience of people
Okay.
from around the city.
Mhm.
So, it was outside of my dad's radar.
I got you.
Yeah, Palmer Park, though, was a big part of my childhood.
Mm.
In the wintertime, the little lake there used to freeze over, and we'd go over there ice skating.
Wow.
There used to be I'm gonna call it a warming shelter. It was had bathrooms at a small concession stand so you could get hot chocolate.
Okay.
But we would go over there, and we would ice skate over there. The tennis courts have been there since I can remember, and as kids, we never played tennis well, but we played a lot of tennis. We would go over because the courts were free.
Mhm.
And we could ride our bikes over.
Mm.
So, our bikes, it was the bus or our bikes.
I got you. And especially you had a motorbike. I was thinking he was just making the bikes
Yeah.
the dad's way. You got a little bit of you got
Yeah. We
some
couldn't
go with them.
We couldn't really ride outside of the neighborhood too much
Okay.
on our mini bikes or whatever because,
Yeah.
they weren't exactly street legal. But we did always have bicycles.
Okay. All right.
And the other part that I remember so much is Northland. Going to the mall was like our social thing,
Mhm.
on the weekends or whatever. And we would catch the bus. You just jumped on the 8 Mile bus and you went over to Northland, and you hung out. There was a Big Boy there. And so if you, had saved your allowance, you'd treat yourself
Have
to lunch
some-
at Big Boy.
Okay.
And Hudson's there used to have this fabulous bakery on the main level of the store.
Mhm.
And you would hit them up for something.
Oh, I definitely remember that even in my Northland journeys, and I certainly remember the bus to get there too, because it was Northland was a post. Right now, as everything's being demolished and changed around,
Right.
I'm sure, and also depending upon the age, it's like what you talking about a mall. So at one point in time, instead of going online to buy everything, people would go to these large
Literally.
shopping centers.
Right.
In Northland, I don't know, a lot of people know this. That was the first mall in America.
Right, the
So
first enclosed one.
yeah.
We had Hudson's, B. Siegel, J.C. Penney, and just so many other small stores, restaurants.
Hmm.
Nordland was the joint. I
Yeah.
remember Hudson's, the bargain basement at Hudson's. Yeah, it was quite the experience. The other part of the West Side that I remember a lot is Northland Roller Rink, 'cause that
Okay.
that was our Saturday night hangout.
Oh, yeah, and,
Yeah,
shout out and rest in peace, Mr. Herman Davis, and the stories of all of the things that would happen up there, but,
yeah,
Northland, roller rink, and even to this day, definitely, like, over on Skateland and all of that stuff, but it's, Detroit has a rich roller skating, community. Let's just go
yes,
far, kinda like the ballroom
yes,
community and the bowling community, and
right,
if you're in it, you're gonna meet those people. You know
right.
what I'm saying? You can walk in, you'll drive by like a roller rink on like a off Tuesday at I don't know 1:30, and it's like 60 cars outside. And you're like, what
Mhm.
is going on in there? And then you walk in, and there's people from 30 to 75
Yep, yep.
roller skating.
Right, right. You know, the other thing you mentioned bowling. I mean, we had that bowling alley, State Fair Bowl,
Mm,
right there on Woodward.
yeah.
And when you think about it, it was like 4 buildings of bowling. I mean, it was all
Mm,
interconnected by a wide hallway,
mm.
but there were so many lanes. And it was the kind of place our parents would drop us off. We'd get just a group of our friends, and we'd go up there and we'd bowl.
Uh-huh.
Um
Were you any good?
no, never. I'm still not. You know, my favorite now is the Garden Bowl on
Yeah,
Woodward because they have those little gate arms that they'll pop up.
all
So
day.
my excuse when I was raising my kids was, we gotta have the gate arms because I got the
Hilarious.
kids with me.
Oh, hey, see, you see this? That's the engineering mind. It's
Right.
like, hey, it's like he's 7. He needs that.
Yeah,
Definitely, but yeah,
yeah.
yeah, bowling, for anybody that's not from the Midwest, it's certain just Midwest things, bowling is happening in Detroit, so if
Mhm.
people get personal about it, like, they get their own little bags for their balls
Yes,
and
yes.
stuff,
I
and
have my initials carved in my
okay.
yeah, Santa brought me that one year.
I'm with it. I'm with it. I'm with it. All right. So, like in this same arc from Cast Tech, what was the thought process? I'm guessing you're on the engineering path. You see that. What are you thinking for college and where you want to go? What was the connection?
I went through this phase. So I was CAS let you pick a curriculum. I was
Mm-hmm.
studying architecture, construction type curriculum, thought I wanted to be an architect.
Mm,
And problem was I didn't get along with the drafting teacher that I
okay.
had to have multiple classes
Oh
with.
man,
And at some point, just a separation was in order. So we moved
got you.
over to Henry Ford
Mm,
High School, and I finished high school there. And by the time I did that, I spent a little time going to night school. I
mm,
switched in the middle of the year,
okay.
and they couldn't accommodate me in day school. The schools were that crowded back
Mm,
then. And
wow.
so I did night school, and I was going to school with adults. I
Mm-hmm.
was in, second half of the 11th
Mm,
grade. And by the end of it, I was feeling quite like an adult. So
mm,
I reluctantly went back to regular high school,
mm,
finished my senior year, and thought, I'm not going to college. Now,
mm,
I'm the youngest of the 4.
mm-hmm.
And in my household, there was no discussion of not th going to college. I mean, there
Okay.
just was no you
I,
just college was part of the
I
program.
could imagine with a nurse for a mother and an engineer for a father, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Definitely.
And so my little rebel self thought, "No, I'm just gonna get a job," and I
Okay.
got a job, and I was
Alright.
working at a store. I was on my feet working as a
Hmm.
cashier. The first day I did, like, an 8-hour shift. I came home, I thought my legs were gonna explode, and
Hilarious.
I just said to my mom, "I can't do this.
Mm,
I have to go to college." I
wow.
mean, like, I'm not cut out for this,
Mm,
and, I literally went to Wayne County Community College,
mm,
and I enrolled in college that summer. I
wow.
started classes at Wayne County Community College,
Mm,
and I did my first year of school at Wayne County.
mm,
I wanna give a shout out to our community colleges. They play a really important role, um, in Michigan, throughout the country too, though. They
mm,
play an important role. They give people an opportunity to step into college, And from there, they can experiment a little bit with what they might want to study and move on to other things. But Wayne County Community College was really important to me. It allowed me to really get my head around studying at a college level, and then I transferred up to Michigan State.
So a couple things I want to uplift that you share. First, like on that work journey. So definitely, I'm when I'm younger, I'm also one of those people that's like, I want to get a job too. But yes, my first job was the Taco Bell basement of Wayne State, and you are correct. I'm like on my feet for 6 hours. It's like, what is going on? Eventually, because I've had so many, as like, sometimes people be like, this is my side hustle. I've had like, I guess, side jobs. I always had like an entrepreneurial
Right.
spirit with my parents. But in it, you learn it's so strange that like the first day you're on something and it's like, oh, this is crazy. And then you do it long enough and it just starts making sense. And it's just, you know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
You're not even thinking what you did think, especially as you grow. Another thing that I always uplift. We're social creatures. As you start getting to know a lot of other people in the space you work, it just, passes time. And also, I am a community college kid as well. Henry Ford Community College at the time. It's Henry Ford College now, but you're right. It's like, I think that the classes are smaller, and I've stressed this to so many young people, though I definitely know in a lot of their journeys, and sometimes the parents, because, parents be living vicariously through children at times, but it's like, I want you to go to this college. But, when you get a degree, it's not going to say you did 3 years at WC3 and you finished at Michigan or Harvard or wherever. It's going to be the degree from the institution you go to. And in reality, a lot of the classes that you're taking in before you get to your major are classes, as long as you make sure they're transferable, you can get at a community college.
Absolutely.
in a smaller classroom, more than likely more hands-on, even with the adjunct professors. And if you show that initiative with tutoring, you're going to navigate, I think, with a lot more ease than like in like a lecture hall with 700 people.
Right. My first math class at Michigan State, I think we probably had, I don't know, 200-300 people in it. It was a giant lecture hall. I want to also give out a shout to Henry Ford College. I've attended school there. I started their culinary arts program there. I was already an executive at GM when I started their culinary arts program there, because I wanted to think about taking a turn like that in life. Community colleges are they're worth their weight in gold. I studied Spanish at Mott Community College in Flint when I lived there. You can do so much enrichment for your life through a community college.
Yes,
So
I agree that. And also the culinary program there, I remember because I was taking all these business courses. So sometimes you would go as like a class assignment, but this is, it's functional that you're gonna, if you conduct business, you're gonna be in a business meeting setting. So, you don't want to look uncouth, you know what I mean, in a business setting. So like what that's like, and it's still a phenomenal program. I think Schoolcraft Community College and Henry Ford Community College have like the food in the program is amazing. And then Mr. Spratling, I found out this past summer over at WC3, and he was of Touch of Class Catering. If anybody's ever connected, amazing food, amazing food there too. So you can community college, I think, is very functional. And the other thing is the relationships you'll even build with the other fellow students will be as you say, like these are people already kind of engaged in life, especially if you're taking classes later. So it'll give you a better
a network of people and just a whole different social experience. And it's really great. I'm going to get a plug to Macomb Community College. I took my daughter out there a couple years ago. She wanted to get her cycle endorsement. And they have motorcycle training classes that, you do a 3-day class over the weekend to qualify for your cycle endorsement. So like I said, community colleges help you enrich your life, and they're important, and I'm just so glad we have so many options, here in the metro area.
Oh, definitely. And you already kind of opened up a gateway where you mentioned General Motors, so we about to walk down that street.
Sure.
How do you start at General Motors? What was the thought process when you get there?
So I was graduating Michigan State, and I finished in December.
Okay.
Yeah, and, I was in a hurry to get out of college.
I got
I
you.
didn't wanna go when I went, and once I got there, I was in a hurry to
I got to
get
get
through
out
it.
of here.
Right? So I graduated I studied during the summer. Every summer I was in college, and
Mm.
so I cut it, to 3.5 years instead
Okay.
of 4. And, it's a December graduation. Most companies are coming on campus in the springtime looking
Mm.
for, the graduates. But GM was interviewing on campus in the winter,
Okay.
and I interviewed with them in, late November. They had me come over to Flint
Hmm.
to interview again in December, and, 1st of January made me an offer to come up, and after being a broke
Mm.
college student, I paid my way through college.
Wow.
I didn't put that burden on my
Mm.
parents, and so, I there was a whole lot of cans of tuna, let me just say,
Hey.
and ramen noodles.
Hey.
I was just happy to have such a generous offer.
Mm.
My first offer from General Motors, I went to work for them in January of 1984,
Okay.
$26,500 a year.
Mm.
You'd have thought I was a millionaire.
Hey, and I always uplift this as it sometimes bothers people when I say money is arbitrary, but this is really the further lecture of it. As my father's a CPA, I've shared this a little bit that a lot of the seniors I end up with handling a lot of their tax returns. It's
Uh-huh.
not necessarily about how much money you got. It's about what you do with the money you got. Because there's certain people that, what do they say? Their spending is very limited. And I'm not giving you any financial analysis, but it's about knowing how to budget and knowing
Yep.
what to spend.
Yep.
And you'd be surprised, even sometimes the people that make the most amount of money due to how their spending is, these people will be, caught up for cash all the time.
Right.
And I'm just speaking and don't no attack nobody, but it is some seniors that got some cost of living where they got a little retirement, a little bit of Social Security, and then they're doing well if they ever needed to tap into a bank account because they're not necessarily keeping up with the Joneses,
Right,
buying and
right,
consuming so much
right,
stuff.
right on, right on. And at that point in my life, like, I had been independent, as a
For a minute,
college.
yeah.
Yeah. And so I moved to Flint. I got a one-bedroom apartment.
Mm.
Probably a year into my job, I got a new car with my GM discount.
Okay.
I was working at what was AC Spark Plug,
Mm.
which the name is a bit of a misnomer. It was Spark Plugs, Albert Champion Spark Plugs.
Mm.
Champion was such a smart dude. He started that. The business was acquired by GM.
Mm.
He went over and started, he left eventually, and he started Champion Spark
Mhm.
Plug. So we were AC Spark Plug.
Okay.
We, oil filters, air filters, all sorts of plug products, and fuel systems
Hmm.
and fuel tanks and just a variety of things. So I worked on that side of the business for about 12 years.
Wow.
And lived in Flint.
Which I definitely have a question about that. As we know, Detroit is Different has shared a lot of love for people in Flint.
Uh-huh.
I think most recently. Shout out to Glenn and his wife and Communities First and all they do. Not just in Flint, but in Detroit and Toledo and other places. But Flint in Detroit, like many places throughout Michigan where it's a good amount of Black folks, we share some things in kindred spirit.
Yeah.
A lot of that definitely in industry. So when we think about the mid 80s of what's happening, and this is kind of happening throughout the country, but one thing that crystallizes it and I think moves things forefront to so many people is there's a documentary from Michael Moore called Roger and Me that enters the market. And like a lot of stuff, I mean, I'm an editor myself.
Mm-hmm.
The picture it paints definitely is a reality for some. I don't necessarily think that it's as I don't think necessarily it becomes blanketed for all, but often when we're telling stories, especially in documentary format, it looks like that. Because I even think about my family from Flint during that time and the relationships, and even more so the family atmosphere of how to carry on. But not just Flint, but America itself, due to a lot of political things, which I'm sure we get there. Things start shifting,
Yep.
and a lot of industry just leaves the nation itself.
Right.
So I just want to uplift being there as that comes. What was that
Yeah,
like?
that was my experience. Like, so my experience with GM, I worked for them for 25 years, starting in 1980, 4.
Mm-hmm.
And, at the time, they had, in the neighborhood of 40+% market share.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I left GM in 2009,
Yeah.
we had about 20-something percent market share.
Mm.
I watched a decline, and at some point, just for me personally, it wasn't fun anymore. It was just like, I can't let this be the only thing that I do,
Yeah.
because it was always cutting people,
Mm.
moving jobs away. The buildings that I worked in Flint no longer exist.
Mm.
When I lived in Flint, Buick City existed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And, if you were greeted coming from the south or the north, there were big GM signs that said, "Welcome to Buick City."
Yeah.
And, Buick was just a proud brand, from Flint. And, that whole complex is gone,
Yeah.
right? So it was really something to see, and be a part of for that amount of time. A lot of lives affected. GM had probably 80,000-90,000 people working for them in Flint, and nowadays, they probably have a few thousand.
Yeah.
So it had a huge impact on the community. GM was just a beautiful, Flint was just a beautiful community. GM was so much a part of it. Great cultural center, great art in Flint. For a city of its size, it had everything. As I said to everyone, we had 2 malls. It was just a wonderful community to live in. An hour north of Detroit, and I just had a great experience living there. At some point, I left the component side of that division I worked for, and I was transferred over to the car side of the business, which caused me to move back to the Detroit area, and I worked out at the GM Tech Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And in what you share, I also want to add, as I always do, people be like, you be talking during the interviews, but I want y'all to have a context of things historically. So during that time, as I uplifted the story of Roger and me, you should watch it. And like I say, it's a I'm speaking to listener. I know I assume it was probably like a discussion every day at General Motors. Like, look at this, you know what I'm saying? But especially in Flint.
Yeah.
But another thing that I would like everyone watching to connect with also is, and I've brought this up before, like America is very much on like we're going to look to follow what looks to be the most successful. So when we're getting into the 20th century, success in business looks like being a titan of industry. So like whether it be like a Van Buren, a Henry Ford, even a lot of the things that are happening with Rockefeller, like success would be like, look, I have 500,000 employees throughout the whole nation. And with these 500,000 employees, we have these 10,000 locations. And even this is something that it kind of even goes into like where accounting comes from too. Accounting classes. But like, if you're, I remember as a child, like you're driving, taking road trips in like in the 80s or in some of the early 90s, you're seeing warehouses, like whole rows of warehouses because they're stocking a lot of these materials that are continuously being pushed. And as things even shift in a lot of like what's happening in international trade, accounting even shifts. So accounting shifts to being like, look, we don't necessarily need all of that stuff. We're going to basically design systems where like a part is going to be made and put immediately in a car as fast as possible. Right. So when we really think of like these industries, not only is it the actual location of the plant making it, it's the plants that give the parts that make it, like as they say, like the second, third, fourth, and fifth tier, sometimes suppliers that could be multi-million-dollar businesses throughout Michigan, and some still are, but like this is very prevalent. But you also have a warehousing industry. You have logistics and transportation. This is connecting, creating whole businesses, let alone just like, if you're across the street from a plant, you own a diner.
Right.
You're doing well.
Right. Right. And like, that was it. I was a shipping supervisor. That was one of my
Mm,
jobs when I was there. Worked second shift as a shipping supervisor. We
mm,
probably had, I'm gonna say 20, 25 shipping docks.
mm,
And we had a rail dock. We'd load 10 rail cars a night. So I had, a group of fork truck drivers running around this place
mm,
collecting materials to do all of this shipping every night. We probably shipped, I don't know, 40, 50 truckloads out
mm,
every night. All those people had to eat lunch at a certain point in the night. There were Coney places and other restaurants surrounding the
mhm.
plant. There were bars,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there was a whole infrastructure of supporting businesses to support this thriving auto industry. And
Mhm.
as things shrank, they shrank, they shrank, they
Yeah.
shrank. Not only are the buildings I worked in gone, many of the restaurants and the
Mhm.
places I shopped, all those places are gone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And even then, and even kind of today, I mean, I think it's more like under the table sort of, but also sometimes you can get some industrious workers that may have a good hand in the
Hey.
kitchen or a spouse with a good hand in the kitchen, and it's like, yo,
Yeah.
Friday spaghetti day if you got $15, and that was
That
some
was a
other
thing.
income that came in households and
Look,
kept some things afloat.
I tell you what, when I was working in the warehouse, Bernie Cunningham, God bless him,
Mm.
he did cheesecakes at Christmas and at Easter, and these things were to die for.
Wow.
So he had a whole little kinda side hustle, him
Mm.
and his wife doing cheesecakes. When my early years at GM,
Mhm.
we still got cost of living allowance.
Mm.
And so every quarter there was a cola party.
Mhm.
It rained all over Flint when everybody
Yeah.
got their cola checks because that was the money that bought the new washer and dryer or
Mhm.
paid for the vacation. And it was a whole party culture around it.
I
Like,
I will I love that's brought up as my parents met at a cola party.
yeah,
So for younger people that don't know what that is, and if you've been in the industry, it's just so a cost of living adjustment party would basically be just due to, and this is really a lot due to labor, but the labor movement will have like
100%.
if enough wealth is made from this business, then y'all have to adjust what we're making on our checks. And this is also one of the things that brings one of even though I admire so much of the legacy of her, but this is something that brings Martha Jean the Queen into the prominence of so many people because she would be on the radio, really speaking directly to wives, like, "Your husband about to get a check, so you need to know
Yep.
that's what's happening." So you
Yeah,
know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
like, he couldn't come home and be like,
Right,
"I didn't get as much as I thought." You know what
right,
I'm saying?
right,
So it would
right.
definitely be known as, and so many other things that Martha Jean did in reference to like the path of like even sort of what I think I'm offering and so many others offer in this message
Yes.
based world,
Yes, yes, yes,
So
yes, yes.
definitely.
It was so, like, the culture of working for General Motors and being in a community like Flint that was so dependent on GM
Mhm.
was really different. It was really good for a number of years, and, I cherished those years, and, I have nothing but love in my heart for Flint and my
Okay.
experience living in Flint. Um, at some point, I did transfer back. I moved back down here, and I worked at the tech center, and through that and making, connections with, different people in the company, I ended up moving over to Asia.
Mm,
I went over. I thought I was doing maybe 3 to 4 years in Singapore,
mm,
but, we did 2 years in Singapore,
mm.
and then we moved our headquarters, our Asia Pacific headquarters from Singapore over to Shanghai, and, I moved over to Shanghai and lived in Shanghai, China for 2 years.
Okay. And another point that I always uplift, it was so interesting a couple years back
Mhm,
during I guess it was, what they call the Great Recession, which could be considered more of a depression.
mhm,
I'd have these debates with my econ teachers all the time. But during that time, when people say like, the different corporations that took bailouts and the ones that didn't take bailouts, a lot shifted in General Motors. And still, seeing things are still happening. As I always tell people, it's like, all right, at one point in time, is the uppercase GM and the lowercase GM, they're different entities. But along this path, as I've uplifted, because for many people that grew up in Detroit, in America itself,
mhm.
Michigan itself, most of my life, I don't think I've ever heard a governor say that I'm gonna bring jobs back, and I don't even necessarily know if that's a stance to take per se because so much has shifted. But like General Motors begins entering international markets, but especially when we look at China, the amount of things that are sold just due to the gross domestic product that grows over there, as China opened up relations with doing anything with the Western world during like I want to say like a visit Ronald Reagan takes back in the 80s, but it takes a lot of time to build this trust. And I urge you all to look up history of why a lot of the people in China said we do not want to interact with the Western world due to a lot of things that a British business and politics had impacts on China that definitely resonated for decades. So like as this shifts, starting in the 80s and moving forward, definitely in the 2000s, General Motors is like on the ground interacting of what trade would look like. And also like these trades will be more balanced from things that happened decades ago. So, so as General Motors is engaging in China, the Chinese dollar is like empowering a lot of people to, work back here in America itself just due to the product. So I want to frame that. And I say that to say that, especially like some of the things I said from the executive branch, the business relationship that I would say a majority of all American business has with Chinese corporations and the market, it's very interconnected. So when I hear things like we're not going to do anything with China, I think to myself, it would be like you all kind of understand, you all understand playing football. It would be like, okay, let's go on a football field and let's go to offense and let's not have a quarterback, let's not have a wide receiver, and let's get rid of our running back and one of our offensive linemen. That would be what America severing ties with China would be like. So basically it'd be like 7 of us versus these 11 people on defense, and we're also missing some of our key players to make anything happen.
Right.
So I want to frame that for
right.
people,
At the end of the day, this blue marble we live on is only so big, and we are all interconnected, and we're all interconnected. When you think about China now and its relationship with GM, and I don't want to speak too specifically about GM, but I will say this: they build Buicks in China. They sell more Buicks in China than they sell in North America.
Yeah.
Okay, so and pretty much every model is built over there,
Very
and they
much
sell
so.
more they sell more of them over there than over here.
And even the big 3 here, the concept of being mobility companies here is just due to the fact of, these people that work in finance and they're prognosticating and they know the type of money we have. And also I think something that happened during that last Great Recession was that generation, and I'm born in 82, so I'm a millennial, but like those, I guess, younger millennials, however we define it, and early Gen Zs, their relationship with ownership is not the relationship with ownership that a lot of people definitely in Generation X have, and certainly baby boomers. Like the thought process of what they saw to happen to mortgages, how they look at the debt of college loans, how they look at the debt of even owning a car. They're not. So it's like it's a cultural thing that needs to shift to say like, it's bumping into a person in their late 20s and saying, I don't want to carry no debt. That would not have been spoken when, if this is 30 years ago. The thought process is like home ownership. This is going to be an asset for me. This is going to help me grow. Whereas now a lot of, as I say, the younger millennials and the older Gen Z people see anything as incurring debt as a burden and a liability that could hurt them, because so many of them saw their parents, their grandparents, their aunts, their uncles get impacted by carrying these debts. So hence mobility is like, and I think it'll just come. So the mobility is almost like, okay, I will get an Uber. The Uber will take me to a scooter. The scooter will take me to, I don't know, a skateboard. And you know what I'm saying? And I don't mind bouncing around like this.
Right. Well, when I was in high school, we had free driver training at high school. We had literal driver's courses set up. There was one right outside the backside of Henry Ford High School. And you went after school and you took driving lessons. and you wouldn't get your license. And the goal of every one of my peers was to have your driver's license by 16 years old. Your
Yeah.
16th birthday, you wanted to
Oh,
be
yeah.
in the Secretary of State office, taking your test.
Mhm.
And my kids,
Yeah.
their buddies, their friends, like, they could kinda care less. It's funny
Yes.
because even, my youngest is 21,
Mhm.
and my oldest is twice that.
Mhm.
They they have friends that don't have their license in their 20s, and
Very
I'm
much
like,
so. It is
"What?" So
it
you're right, the concept of
Yeah.
mobility and what you do and what you buy is very, very
Mhm.
different. I'm gonna say I wanna go on the record and say I loved living in Singapore. It
Mhm.
was fantastic. I loved living in Shanghai. It was fantastic. And one of the things we have to watch with the rhetoric we hear about countries and
Yeah.
things is that people are people. I met wonderful people. I ate in wonderful restaurants with meals and food prepared by people with care and love. Like, living in both places was a great experience, and I feel like it helped me become, um, a better person. You learn more, you learn about the differences of culture, and I think it does make you a better person.
Yeah, I can definitely, and I have not lived away, but I've definitely in my few years and all this stuff. Even though I'm becoming an old man, but I've seen some different things, and like you say, oftentimes we're all. I mean, people always say it. It's like we all want the same things. It's more so like
Mhm.
the path in which we get to take them,
Right.
and also in that path, who it impacts and how it impacts
Right.
those in traveling there. So. I definitely think that, and also sometimes the analysis that's needed is like, yeah, you said it's very commonplace that most, like you say, people be like 20, 25, and before they even think they want a driver's license.
Right.
Whereas, yes,
Yeah.
I graduated 2001. I was definitely in that class of like, oh yeah, at 16, I'm getting
Yep.
my license. I had to take it twice because I parallel parking was horrible for me the
Ooh,
first
my
time.
daughter, my youngest,
Mm.
I made her parallel park. I took her over on John R. down near the medical center, and I made her
Oh
parallel
man,
park for a
that's a
couple hours.
tough. I was
I
gonna say
told
that's a tough
this is
place.
this is the deal. You gotta know how to do this. If you want me to give you a set of car keys and turn you out on your own, you gotta prove to me you
See,
can do it.
that's that's her grandfather's water pump coming back to her full circle.
Right.
It's like, yo, I got a
Right.
Tesla. It's gonna
Mhm.
park itself. I don't even need this stuff.
My kids are all great drivers, I'm happy to
Okay.
report.
Definitely, definitely. All right, so I definitely know from General Motors you end up in the political sector. What was that
Yeah.
transition?
So, I left GM, and like I told you, GM had been, on the decline. I had
Mm,
been in situations where, I was in departments that had to be shrunk a
mm,
few times,
yeah.
and it's tough when you have to, fire people.
Oh,
And
it
I did
is.
it personally.
Yeah.
I wanted to be involved when we were cutting my team.
Mm,
And then I thought, I don't want to do this. I need a
yeah.
different experience in life.
Mm,
And I didn't know what. And serendipity led me to a position with Eastern Market.
wow.
I ended up being the chief operating officer for Eastern
Mm,
Market, which is a mouthful of a title.
mm,
Basically, you're just there helping manage the place. It's a wonderful place, one of the nation's oldest farmers markets.
mhm,
It's far more than a farmers market. The corporation serves as kind of the economic development engine for the neighborhood.
mm,
And so, there were upgrades being made to the facility. I don't know if people understand. The city of Detroit owns Eastern Market physically, and the Eastern Market Corporation nonprofit manages it on their behalf. And several of the sheds needed upgrades and enhancements, and those kind of things were underway when I was there. And the other thing that was underway when I was there is Senator Debbie Stabenow was preparing to write a new farm bill.
wow.
The farm bill is a really big bill that comes out of the federal government out of D.C.
Hmm,
about every 5 years.
mm,
Um, and it sets farm policy for the nation.
mm,
Not just farm policy, it sets food policy because it
yeah.
affects far more than just farmers.
Mhm,
Um, SNAP food support for families, so nutrition programs are included in the farm bill.
mhm,
And Senator Stabenow, the senior senator from Michigan at the time, was chair of the Ag Committee.
Hmm.
And one of the things that she saw happening in the country was this movement towards urban farming.
Mm.
And she was very interested and wanted to know a lot more about that. And a lot of Detroit area urban farmers are connected one way or another to Eastern Market. They sell at the market. So we had a really close relationship with the senator's office, and we facilitated some of the connection to urban farmers, hosting meetings for her and her staff to connect with them and understand what the particular dynamics were for urban farming as opposed to rural farming.
Yeah.
And so the result was a urban farming title added to the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill has titles. It has like 12 titles that cover things like forestry and some of the bigger crops. And she added an urban farming title to focus in on what we needed to do to grow urban farming and support those farmers. And those farmers are an important part of the food system in our country. They have a role. And so she was lifting that up, and I connected with her. And somewhere along the line, I guess she took a liking to me. And and she asked me to join her team as her regional person for the Metro Detroit area, covering, Wayne County. So it was like straight up, going to work at Eastern Market was a turn to the right. Like this was now, we're down the road, and I'm taking a turn to the left. I went to work for the U.S. Senate.
Okay. All right. And a couple of things I definitely want to add, even in what you shared about your time there at Eastern Market. So the first thing is definitely, as much as America is certainly a place that I think really enters, it's like two big discussions and debates I have with like economists, like when we look at history. So it's three things that happen in America that historically create, well, really, let's say four, that create the global positioning that happen here in the United States of America. So first we look at like I'm going to say colonizing, but I think historically they may say settling of like what becomes those colonies, and then it expands. When it's then we're looking at my ancestors, the enslavement. So it's like a place for growing, and now this is completely like a lot of the monies that were invested into these colonies. From like the Dutch and Britain and all of these other European nations, Spain especially, were under the guise of a lot of the agriculture and what could be farmed here, those goods, and hence that is the work. So this is a strong space in agriculture. Then, when a lot of the Haitian Revolution happens, you have the Louisiana Purchase afterwards, because the France and Detroit, as I always say, this was a province of France at one point in time, and New Orleans and other places. They're like, look, we don't want anything to do with that hemisphere anymore after everything that happened to Haiti, which Haiti was very key in a lot of things. And this Louisiana Purchase, quote unquote, extends the boundaries of what happens in America, welcoming in other people from Europe, especially to settle there. And then you also have the position of what happens in the world after World War II. So I think because of that, we think heavy industry, but this is still a very strong agricultural nation. Inside of this, I've definitely had the luxury of witnessing and connecting so much to the urban farming here through the collard green cook-off that you all should be familiar with. So shout out to Mama Jerry, Oakland Avenue Farms. It's not a, like, as I'm learning and connecting with it, it is not another place that I could say any time of day, if I want to buy 300 pounds of collard greens, give Mama Jerry a couple days.
That's right.
She gonna make it happen. And also the Detroit Black Community Food Sovereignty Network, and a lot of the work of not just Baba Malik Yakini, but so many others, Mama Erin, Mama Shakira, all of the people that have poured into what happened there at D-Town Farms over. And shout out to my late, great godmother, Joanne Watson, for helping being a part of that. And so many of these other movements that are happening, but also something that I think runs right concurrent, as my music studio is like right up the street when you're over there at Eastern Market. But all of the stuff from Food Lab and Jenna and so many other people like connecting. So a lot at this moment in time, I think of like 2010, 11, 12. And I'm sure this is like that time. You have a lot of industry also existing, and shout out to April too, but April Anderson, Good Cakes and Bakes, where
Right.
a lot of the growers are building relationships with people that, you know, cook and make the food. And in these relationships, it's like we need spaces for this, that, and a lot. So even through a lot of like the gateway of the support of Eastern Market, kitchens and other things become more prevalent as an example of what could be done throughout the region.
Right. I mean, it urban farming and creating local enterprise around food production is a real deal, and it's supporting thousands of people here locally. As you mentioned, April started selling, you know, her products at Eastern Market. Once you get to a certain threshold, and it's in the low 20,000s. I'm going to call it 22,000. I'm exactly wrong, but I'm approximately right. After that, you have to get into a commercial kitchen so you could further grow your business. We put in a commercial kitchen at Eastern Market because it costs a lot of money to have a commercial grade kitchen certified. So you put one in, you make it available to the community. Maybe I need to rent it for 8 hours a week, and maybe your business needs it for 10 hours a week. This thing runs 24/7, 7 days a week. And small businesses can produce their product there and, you know, stay legal with requirements for food production, and they can grow their business. The other thing we did, and this is one of the things that Senator Stabenow did in my time with her, is she helped get some grant funding so that Eastern Market could build out small incubator spaces in some of those warehouses. So you take a big warehouse down there that's not utilized or perhaps underutilized, you acquire it, and you put in smaller spaces. So there's room for the person that makes jam that needs to be in there 5 days a week making jam. They don't have to buy their own brick and mortar building and put it together. They could just lease out this smaller space in this incubator building. So we were able to get funding for that through a process called congressionally directed spending. So you can use Eastern Market as the nucleus for growth for so many in the community who are interested in the food business. And, you know, Sweet Potato Sensations, Good Cakes and Bakes, we've got a lot of folks that were selling product down at Eastern Market that grew into wonderful, full-fledged businesses, including Corridor Sausage that got acquired by yet a bigger meat processor.
Another one that I don't even know, but I'm sure you were instrumental in a lot of that too. But Keep Growing Detroit, that actually they're at Eastern Market. It is farming, and I would say to every person that looks at my garden, it's like, how you get this going? I'm like, join Keep Growing Detroit. You're a resident of Detroit.
Absolutely.
They have multiple, you know, where they give, you know, they'll give you seeds or transplant. A transplant is basically like a crop that started a little bit before, you know, because from seed to growth, it takes a little bit more of a green thumb. But transplant, I'm not saying it's exactly easy, but it'll help, you know, get you down there.
Yeah, we love what they're doing at Keep Growing Detroit. We love Greening of Detroit. You know, at one point, the work that Keep Growing was doing was inside of Greening of Detroit, and then they kind of split off into two organizations. And we were really instrumental in helping support Ashley and Keep Growing as they, you know, grew into what they are. And we're very proud of, you know, speaking as an Eastern Market alumni, we're very proud of the relationship that we have with them and numerous local growers. They're doing wonderful work. And you mentioned Jerry, and I just want to say, shout out to Jerry. Jerry is on the national committee for urban agriculture. Senator Debbie Stabenow got her nominated and appointed to the national committee. She's a national voice and expert, and she is just the most lovely person.
All day.
And if you haven't visited Oakland Avenue Farms, go over and see what she's got going on. They employ young people. One of the things I didn't mention when I was growing up, I always had a job growing up.
Okay.
And for a long time, the city of Detroit used to do these summer employment programs, right?
Very much so.
It's very much similar to what we call now is Grow Detroit Young Talent. It's very much in that vein. And so Jerry is passing it on to the next generation because she always has young people over there working on the farm.
Mm.
And she is just a wonderful resource in the community.
No.
Malik as well. Malik Yakini was with Senator Debbie Stabenow when they made the announcement about the 2014 Farm Bill
Wow.
coming to fruition. And she brought the signing ceremony for that bill here to Michigan.
Wow.
President Barack Obama went to Lansing, Michigan, Michigan State University, my alma mater, and hers as well, Go Green, and signed the Farm Bill right up in Lansing, Michigan. That's
phenomenal. Love Mama Jerry. Always good people.
Oh,
also,
yeah,
if you're going to go over
yeah.
to Oakland Avenue, I'm between you and me, get some jam.
Yeah.
Get some jam.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
And there are so Jerry's Farm is a great example. Multiple people are they're making their living at working at that farm. I mean, this is serious stuff, and it's good stuff. And there's lots of other wonderful urban farmers. I'm not going to mention everybody. I don't want to offend anybody by leaving them out. But we have so many. We have so many, and it's great. And the fact that Keep Growing Detroit is trying to help a whole absolute new generation of people understand how to just have a garden in your yard.
Yeah.
Right? So, shout out to them for their good work.
Oh, yeah. We've been doing our collard green cook-off for about 3 years. And in that time, we've bought over, a couple 1,000 pounds of greens to have the competition and everything, and building relationships with so many people connected to the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund. But it's so many spaces and places. Keep Growing Detroit can definitely, if you're interested in offerings and relationships with the USDA, that's present, because also a lot of that movement has been uplifting the role that a lot of Black farmers play in agriculture. Something else, another detail I like to share is like Michigan State is a university, but it is technically an agricultural university.
Land-grant university.
Yep. So, like, if you're driving up and you're wondering, it's like, what are all these cows and stuff connected? Because somebody's out there testing,
Yeah, State has got quite the reputation. They've developed some lines of pigs and cows that are world-renowned, and a lot of agricultural research. They have an extension center here in the city. They have taught and supported teaching nutrition and cooking programs through Eastern Market in the city, and also working with gleaners. Give a shout out to them and to our food banks that do wonderful work in the community, are all connected in that mix. I'm going to give a shout out to the Lions.
Okay.
And the NFL, because they have a focus on urban farming and on nutrition.
I never knew that.
It blows my mind. When we had the draft here a couple years ago, the commissioner came in with some players, and they gave a bunch of money, built processing. I don't want to call it a greenhouse, but it's more space to do the transplant stuff.
I know Travis. Travis got some of that over like in the Schoolcraft area.
Right, off of Southfield, near the Southfield Joy area. The NFL donated for that. The NFL has had a focus on nutrition. Obviously, they're interested in athletes, and athletes need good nutrition. And so they did programming at Eastern Market, the Eat Up and Meet Up. They sent the chef over from Ford Field, and they would cook with kids, do cooking demonstrations. We would give the kids a few double-up food bucks, and they would go out to the market and be able to shop for some fruits or vegetables to take home. So I think the Lions is, they're stepping up and they're doing good work supporting the NFL in general, supporting nutrition and local farmers in the communities where their teams play. So I wanted to shout them out. But, working for Senator Stabenow, first off, love her to pieces. I worked for her for over a decade.
Wow.
And she was very interested in Southeast Michigan, really laser focused on being supportive to Detroit. And in my time with her, she was able to do some really good things in the community, supported funding or assisting getting funding for a variety of projects, including, mass transit, money for buses, infrastructure. One of the things that kind of no one really wants to care about is the pipes underground. And
Well,
it's
until they
not
burst.
until they burst, and then everybody's
Mhm,
interested.
mhm,
So, we've gotten millions of dollars for Southeast Michigan, but specifically for Wayne County and for the Detroit area
mm,
to deal with improvements in our sewer system that
hmm,
will help mitigate some of the flooding that we get down in Jefferson Chalmers
yeah,
or over near, Southfield and Joy,
mhm,
money to do detention basins when they're doing other infrastructure improvements, so there's some place for the water to go. We've gotten money uh, to deal with blight in the city. When they sent the money to Michigan back after the Great Recession,
mhm,
the idea, I guess, coming out of the federal government was that states would know what best to do with this money, in 2000, let's call it 2009, 2010,
okay,
the recovery funds.
mhm,
The state of Michigan requirements for uh, assistance to homeowners, because, it was supposed to be assistance to homeowners. We were in a
yeah,
foreclosure crisis.
yeah,
Um, they were really, really tough.
yes,
And I have my personal opinions about it, but the result was that a lot of the money didn't get deployed, right?
yes,
And the Treasury was like, "Okay, we're just gonna claw that funding back."
yeah,
Senator Stabenow worked with the mayor
hmm,
to get that money rerouted, keep it here in the state,
mm,
and use it to deal with blight, because
mm,
blight was a real issue. I mean, it
mm,
was a real every Detroiter would say that. It was really problematic, and so she worked hard, and she got that money redeployed, to be able to use it for addressing blight. We were able to tear down a lot of homes. In some ways, I know some people are mad about it. They're like, "Oh, you shouldn't tear down the houses, you should fix them up." In defense of the city, I think they made some real good decisions. Some of that stuff had to come down. Um, the stuff that could be fixed was, routed through the land bank and was fixed. But the upshot of it, and I'm gonna get the numbers precisely wrong, but approximately correct. They thought they had about 80,000 houses that need to be torn down in the city. They started tearing down houses and fixing up the houses they could fix up. The result was that other people that own these houses, vacant houses, whatever, they were like, "Oh, if they're gonna fix up their property, now mine can be worth something."
mm,
And they started fixing up their homes, right? They started blight enforcement too, more rigorously. The result is that in the end, you don't have to tear down 80,000 houses. They ended up tearing down some number, let's call it 40,000.
mm,
Um, but they reinvigorated these neighborhoods, and they brought up the property values, in the neighborhoods by so many more houses being converted into really nice living options. So she got money so that that blight process could start. And once that blight process, elimination process started, then it created a snowball effect that resulted, I think, in what are some really good outcomes. I've toured some of the houses that were fixed up, by the land bank and then acquired by Detroiters at very reasonable rates, really, for the quality and the size of the homes. There were some great bargains out there, and I've toured some of these houses over near East English Village or over in the Bagley neighborhood,
mhm,
and I mean, it was really good outcomes for Detroiters. Opportunity had to have decent housing for Detroiters, and so I was really proud that our office was able to do the work to get that funding put in place. And with the congressionally directed spending process that we've been doing for about the last 5 years, it's allowed me to get to know what our local area nonprofits and our local government is doing in terms of important projects, transformative projects for the city, and get them, in the attention of the senator so that she could get them in the attention of appropriators in D.C. So we've been able to get a lot of funding sent over here, including like green infrastructure upgrades, like the Joe Louis Greenway,
mhm,
which is going to run through the
very
neighborhoods.
much so.
And if you go over off of like the Tireman area over near Wyoming,
Mhm,
and see the transformation in that land that was once, an abandoned railroad,
mhm,
non-used railway,
yes,
full of abandoned debris, tires, all
mhm,
sorts of nonsense. It's been cleaned up, cleaned out, new bike paths and pedestrian paths, new park spaces. The park off of Tireman has a beautiful plaza with playground infrastructure, and they've got an outdoor fireplace kind of thing going on. Every time I go over there, it's filled with families and children playing and enjoying it and having a great time. And I'm proud that we were able to bring some federal dollars to make that transformation possible. Making life good in the neighborhoods and having lovely parks. I grew up with lovely parks. I grew up with lovely swimming pools that were available for free in the community. And so to the extent that we've been able to help get funding, I'm really proud of the work that we did in our office. Really excited too.
Yeah, man, you shared another end of the perspective on things that I've definitely witnessed happen, and we've explored some of these topics. I think that definitely knowing those relationships that can end that you can have from a federal lens to provide the resources when things get local. I definitely think that. And it's back to like all this stuff is like the snapshot in time and what's happening and how things are happening. I do think that some of the properties could have, I think some of the properties that end up being demolished possibly could have been saved, but then we're also getting into the thought process of the responsibility, the onus, and what would be had, who will hold the responsibility. Really, I mean, this is like more of a current type discussion, but a lot of the discussion of what's happening to the Leland place right now and the residents of figuring out what's going to happen is the landlords are abandoning it for bankruptcy and tenants making a decision. A lot of the so like as I always used to say in any form of things, it's like ideas need to have plans with actions kind of connected to them. And oftentimes, as they say, you can, hindsight is 20/20. Certain things you can look back, but you got to exhaust the moment of that reality. What could have happened? What resources are available? What could connect? All of that really plays a role, very key. And also the ways that people kind of engage with what they see even in value of a city. I definitely live in a community that has had it struggles with definitely blight, but blight kind of connects to residents that have left. Sometimes residents feel like unheard or like as part of it, but the really biggest elephant in the room when I talk about anything of the transition of Detroit really is the fact that in my lifetime, maybe really over like the past 10 years, we've gone from a city with so many homeowners to so many renters now. So like when you go from like, I mean, most of my life, Detroit has like, 85% homeowners. And now we're looking at like a 50-50. You just function differently. If I'm renting and, if I'm renting and, the person across the street, they have a music band and they playing drums too loud. It's like, I'm out next week. So it's a different relationship that a renter has. And I'm not saying, as I know a lot of people say, like renters care about community too. They do, but it's just a different lens of which you connect. And being in these communities that sometimes these are like legacy homes from families and, families have like not as present. It changes the relationship that you have with community, which definitely has like something that like, I mean, let me go back. I don't know. Like, let's go back, 15, 20 years ago which I also have my feelings about a lot of what was propagated by Devil's Night had other things why it happened. But when incidents happen like that in my community, then because you had so many more of the owners that knew one another, it would get resolved a lot different than like, I don't know them. I'm just renting over here. I don't want to be next door to this. So I'm going to just go.
Right.
Yeah.
To my way of thinking, owning a home is a bit like a love affair. I mean, it's your home. You love it. You take care of it.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, if you're just a landlord and you own 200 of these things, it's just a business transaction, right? Like, are you going to invest the TLC? Are you going to plant flowers in front of the house?
Yeah.
I mean, it really creates a different environment. And I think the strategy of using a land bank to salvage homes and get them made beautiful again and to make them available is the right kind of thing to do given the situation we have in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's unfortunate. The way I describe it is I say never has a city been abandoned so recklessly as Detroit was abandoned.
Very much so.
And given that set of facts, we've got to do some extraordinary things to try to turn it around. I'm hopeful for our city. When people talk about housing shortage in Michigan, I'm like, we still have a lot of really good houses here that are yet to be fixed up. And so I'm hopeful for our city. I think we've made strides. Still a lot more to do. Still a lot more to do.
I think it's always going to be that. I would say in reference to when it comes to home ownership, like, and I'm a person that, Lord knows, this is my grandma's house. I bought this house when I was 22, and even in buying it, I didn't follow through like I should have. Even when I got when I got this notarized, I didn't even go to the county like I should have and everything. So on record, I got to clean that up, and Lord knows it's going to involve probate court. But these are things I've learned as time goes. But even in that, being so young, the onus of what home ownership comes with for so many reasons. You need to have resources available to execute a lot of this stuff too. And I also think just what's happened in the market, it's definitely not the reality it was. And thank God my grandfather was one of the few World War II veterans that was Black that got a GI Bill. But like, it's not even, and even what you spoke of your father, like, I mean, it's commonplace that people say, yeah, I'm gonna build my house, things like that. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but the probability of it today, just as things have shifted,
it really has shifted.
Very much, we're looking at new realities. And as these new realities take form, similar to like what the land bank is, I don't necessarily have the critiques of like what a lot of people have about it, but it kind of goes back to like who these people are and how they move through things. And I think the challenge with the land bank was so many speculators ended up looking that as at a resource. But it's like, if I create and then we get into like laws of like, okay, if I'm a government body and you don't necessarily see this happening, you can't just be like, all right, well, anybody that put a bid on more than 4 houses, we just gonna reject them. Like sometimes, things happen and then you adjust as rules come to life. And then as you make those adjustments, we know what could happen, but we have to exhaust the reality of something happening and you can't just not do anything.
Right.
So that, and I think that's more an actor in that we had a land bank, but this is real prevalent throughout the nation as more corporate actors have gotten into residential real estate really during COVID.
So and like really the phenomenon of investors, they go into places that are undervalued.
Yeah.
So whether it was a city-owned land bank or some other mechanism, if the market was undervalued, if Detroit was undervalued, which it was, which it in a lot of ways still is, that dynamic of these new groups of people that just want to buy and own lots of houses, and that's how they're going to make their living. The other phenomenon, I mean, like, think about it. Airbnb didn't exist, right?
No,
people weren't renting their houses out to complete strangers. And so, like, this whole new dynamic is at place. Everybody's a hotelier now, even when they're not, So there's a lot going on. And I don't know how you necessarily put policy in place to block all of it. What I would say is we just have to change the, like the fundamental perception of Detroit. And I think Detroit has been really successful in getting the word out and trying to change the narrative on a national basis. They're trying to change the narrative. I mean, we're on Times, top 100 places to visit.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that helps us elevate our profile and helps us build more value in our city.
I mean, you eloquently said it, but I'm gonna actually take it back to even before we started recording something that you led with. It's like we're not gonna guard and secure our way to better relationships. It all kind of deals with talking to people. So like if foreign investors start coming down the street, and it's a couple here, but I've met some of them, and I'm not necessarily saying just because they're foreign, that means they're bad or anything. It's back to like perception in the relationship. And, I don't necessarily have the boldness of some of my activist folks, like shout out Edith Ford and all of them. And it's like, yo, if you over here, you doing this, that, and the other, I can say, look, I'm at Detroit, it's different. I do this. I'm down the street. This is what we do. I'm just letting you know that this is what I've seen. I've been here for years, and I can connect you to others. A lot of it is relationship based. So that's and you can't you can't have any rule or policy to
No.
build this, and no matter what, it's going to be somebody that's like, oh, you can do this now.
Right.
If you build a relationship, you can mitigate so much of it and say, hey,
Yeah.
we a senior that used to live next door, her pipes burst. We would really like her to move into your space. And
Right.
what would that look like? And now we can begin some discussions,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
Right.
And
Yeah, you're right. So much of this, I think we were talking before we started recording.
yeah.
You got to love your way through this. You got to
Mhm.
learn how to be a community, be part of a
Yeah.
community, be a responsible part, deliver what you can to a community.
Mhm.
And I feel in a lot of ways, I feel like that's what I've been allowed to do, particularly through my work in the Senate. I now work for Senator Gary Peters.
Mhm.
So I've got 10 more months or so. We're in the
Uh-huh.
home stretch.
Yeah.
But, I'm trying to elevate the things that are important in the mindset of our federal representatives so that we can bring resources to play in the community. And everybody's got to get in and do their I'm doing my piece there, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got to just do their piece where they could fit in,
Mhm.
because this is our city.
Very, very much so. And in that, as they always say, my interview with Diallo Smith, it's like some people look at things like I'm gonna do something to it. Some people say I'm gonna do it for it. We got to do it with it.
Right.
So the with,
Beautiful.
it takes stronger understandings, and this is another thing that you can probably tell now. It's like I like looking at stuff in nerd, but also from sociological lens. And in a sociological lens, from a business perspective, America has always kind of had this rugged individual complex and leadership for
Mm.
business, but
Mhm.
that's one lens for business.
Mhm.
And really, I'm gonna tell you, like through these devices and social media, it's kind of become more pervasive in all forms of connection in many ways. So, like, no matter what the institution, entity, even if the institution, the entity is family itself, having better understandings to like be a collective become more important every day here. As I say, like we can make the rules and we can have all types of theories, but if we're still very hyper individualized, and I guess some people may argue America was always like this. I don't necessarily always think so, just from a lot of historic things that I could point to. But in that time, we have to certainly have more patience and more time to get those understandings so individuals and feel included. And now we can work with one another so
Right.
we can get to the outcomes that are qualities of life that we
Right.
all want to welcome into our lives.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, we I think you kinda hit the nail on the head. This hyper individualism, like, we all need to be individually responsible
Very
and
much so.
good people, but at the end of the day, we're here together, and
Yeah.
we gotta get some things done together,
Mhm.
and, when it comes to politics or policy or government, I work for government. I don't
Mhm.
like, my boss is a politician. I work for government.
Mm.
It can be overwhelming to understand it all.
I can imagine.
People like, I tell everyone, "You have to vote." It is both a privilege and a responsibility,
Mhm.
and people, "It's too much for me. I can't follow it all." Well, don't follow it all. Follow the part you care about,
Mm.
and when you follow the part you care about, let's say you care about schools, so follow your local school board elections, right?
Mm.
Let's say you care about getting the trash picked up on time, which, like, when it doesn't happen, that's when you know about it, right?
You got that
So,
right.
then pay attention to your city council and your mayoral race. Um, if you care about nuclear arms agreements, pay attention to your federal races.
Yeah.
But when you get into the place where you care about, you're gonna make connections with other people
Mhm.
who may be able to pay attention to another part. I call it developing your trusted sources.
Mm.
I'm watching the city council races, you're watching the school board races, somebody else is watching the Senate race, and collectively, because we're trusted sources with one another, We live in a community. We value our community and want certain things for it. You're my trusted source. I'm going to trust you when you tell me who to vote for in the race that I haven't really been paying attention to. And you're going to ask for my advice in the race that I am paying attention to. So get in where you fit in, engage in the piece you care about. If you're not sure, well, who actually is in charge of the roads? Well, if they're big trunkways, big throughways, it's probably the county. So you need to care about who your county commissioner is, right? If you care about how the state implements Medicaid healthcare policy, that's the state of Michigan is making those policy decisions. It's your governor, it's your state senator, your state representative. Get to know those people. You know, they have town halls. Go to their meetings, ask your questions, raise your issues, call their offices and talk about it. It doesn't take a lot. Get in where you care about something and pay attention to it, and show up at the polls. And I'm going to tell you, your votes matter so much that there are armies of people and dollars out here trying to take your vote from you. Like, folks wouldn't work so hard to challenge your ability to vote if it wasn't so important. It is very important. I started voting as an 18-year-old. Just like with my driver's license, the day I turned 18, I was at the Secretary of State's office registering to vote. And I haven't missed an election since. I mean, like, voting is, I vote in the primaries, I vote in the general elections. Who you elect matters. And the election outcome of last year, of 24, has really manifested some awful stuff. I saw a story this morning where ICE officials picked up a gentleman outside in Buffalo, New York. He's blind, effectively blind, and used a walking stick. And they, after determining they couldn't deport him, dropped him off 5 miles from his home in Buffalo, New York.
Wow.
And he froze to death.
I was going to say he's
walking
freezing.
home.
Yeah.
He did.
If
he
he's
froze
blind,
to death.
he doesn't even, And they don't even have the courtesy to take him back to his house.
I mean, this kind of treatment of people is just unacceptable, and it's a direct result of who got elected.
Yeah.
So get out there and vote. And, vote your conscience, vote for what you believe in. But I don't believe in the kind of stuff we're doing right now. And so we got to get out here in November and we got to vote. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm just telling you, get out in November because we got to vote, because we have an opportunity to turn both the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. and the Senate if we get out and vote.
Yeah, I would say definitely there have been some what would I say? Some of the more careless and harmful acts of people connected to this current Trump administration have been some of the toughest things to witness as a citizen of America.
Right.
And in that, I definitely sit in a space and place of having an understanding where people do have the argument for apathy and how they feel and why they feel apathetic towards voting, which it's similar to what you raised. Like, there definitely are people that are pushing for the apathy so that it heightens the probability of what they want to push. But it also, I know, is so many people, especially in communities like mine and that I connect with, that feel like they have been neglected and not given the term I've been saying all week now, the dignity of being honored and respected from a lot of politicians, as I've interacted with a lot of people in the political space. And it's still all back to kind of those relationship things. And the toughest thing of it, especially right now where it's a congressional person, connected to our communities, that I don't think I've ever seen more vitriolic reaction to how's this and why is this and that. And I'm like, look, I'm gonna be honest. As much as I definitely don't necessarily think a lot of what has been delivered has been something that has connected or changed a lot of the lives, the reality is that person shows up at spaces and places where I know a lot of you all never would. And it's almost got like large arguments with some of the people I know, as you all have probably seen. I had on, Jonathan Kinlock that leads the 13th district of the Democrats, and Kevin Tolbert not too long. That was the 12th. It wasn't even necessarily designed to happen like that. But also in this same space and place, I urge a lot of people that are running. I'm like, you have to make connections. It's so many people that say they've never even had a actual politician knock on their door, and I'm 43, so I remember what it was like being a kid and seeing people pound the pavement and knock on doors. Like I vividly remember. I mean, rest in peace, Jesse Jackson. What it was like. That day we went to the polls, but before that day we went to the polls, it was so many people connected to all types of like political parties knocking on the door, coming and meeting people, whether it be Dennis Archer walking up to talk to my grandma and Sharon McPhail. And these aren't like people that know, but this was the act of how they engaged in community. So I'm not saying that no one is, but I definitely know also a lot of things have shifted in trends. And I know we look at a lot of data and analytics to make decisions on everything, but it's so many people in my community that have never met any politician. It's shocking sometimes when I say, hey, I think you need to connect with these people.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I hear you. Again, I didn't work on the political side of her house. I worked in her official office. But I could tell you Senator Debbie Stabenow knocked doors and pressed the palms of people. She was an old-fashioned get out there and talk to the people kind of person and policymaker. And so I appreciate that. And I want to just take your point about how things are looked at, analytics, let's do things different. There's a generation now who thinks that you could do it all through Facebook or Instagram or whatever. So. But here's the deal. You might have 2 million followers on Instagram, but do they vote in the 13th district?
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? I mean, at some point, if you're going to represent the 13th district, you got to be here in the 13th district. And not every politician approaches it the same way. Some are far better than others about making themselves accessible to their constituency. And so here's my point. If that matters to you, then get out there and vote for that person. Get out there and maybe work for their campaign. If it matters, if it's someone who's showing up in your community and they're listening to you, and they're gauging what you want to see happen, support them.
Yeah.
Because that's what it takes. And the other thing I would say is one of the things that I want to encourage with particularly young people is it don't always have to be somebody else. Maybe you need to be the one running for office. We need a new generation of folks in here, right? So maybe it's you. You're right here from the neighborhood and you're concerned and you have a vision for how things ought to go. Well, we need you in Lansing, right? Or we need you down at City Hall at the Coleman A. Young, on the council. So it doesn't always have to be somebody else. Hopefully, we start raising each other up and we start saying to our neighbors, hey, Miss Block Club leader, you seem to know everything going on and you're good at getting people to do things. I really need you to run for council, right? I need you to run because the rep we have now in Lansing ain't showing up for us. But you show up and you ain't even paid to do it, right? Yeah. So let's lift up our neighbors, maybe open their eyes to the fact that they could be the leaders we're looking for. And let's support them and let's know that we have something to do to get them elected. If we support them, let's get out there and let everybody know why, and let's encourage other people to support them.
I love it. I love it. And as we get to a close, I got my classic questions. I do want to uplift the fact of Debbie Stabenow. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? People be like, oh, you meet a lot of people. But Debbie Stabenow, I can say through a couple of iterations that in spaces and places was as an active senator. And so people kind of understand it's only 50 senators. Well, no, it's 100 senators.
Right. 2 in each state.
Yes, 2 in each state. So it's only 100 senators in the United States of America. So like the understanding of the scarcity of her time, I was still surprised that like the patience she took, the times that we were in the same setting to talk to everyone, just briefly, but one time it was even a little longer. But I definitely felt that she was a lot more present than I've seen others.
Yes, I agree with you.
You know, and in business and in politics, because these critiques are also said about a lot of people we patronize with money too. And I definitely applaud that, and I've seen it like actively, you know what I'm saying? So I feel where you're coming from there, for sure. That happens. Another thing, as you said, consider running, learn. I mean, there are generations of people that have gone from community leadership into political leadership.
Yes.
I mean, even right now, my council member, Renata Miller, is a classic example of that, and many others. So it can be a transition.
Yeah.
And now, classic Detroit is different questions. I got to hit you with these. And thank you so much. You've given, like, it went from like so much of the story, but now we get to actually kind of have a more of a social, but also strong cultural and political discussion for people to grasp and get some game. You know what I'm saying? Get some experience from someone that's set in a space and place of knowing how things are happening. I'm just sitting observing, but bouncing it off. Thank you. So classic Detroit is different questions. It's definitely probably left field. You may already kind of gave away a little bit of it, but your very first car, year, make, and model, year you got it.
Ooh. Well, a Volkswagen Rabbit was not really mine. It was my mom's, but she let me drive it. She gave me her hand-me-down a few years later, her hand-me-down Ford Granada. We called it the Grenade. I think I had the first custom wheels in Michigan. My dad, I was home from Michigan State for a weekend, and when I got back, he had taken my wheels and he had painted them yellow and green. It was the most awful thing ever, and he thought it was the best thing ever. But so I had custom rims before custom rims were a thing. And it was it was money green. I don't know if you're old enough to remember that color. It was a money green Granada.
Yeah, I remember
the Grenade.
I don't remember the Granada, but I'm definitely looking it up. I remember money green as I did one of those tours at the Ford House. There's all types of stuff about cars here in Michigan, but like all the different color options. But so your dad actually it was another thing. Like you just parked it one day, and he was like, "I'm about to change this up."
Right. That was like, my dad.
You a Michigan State Spartan now?
Right.
All right. So where's the first place you went when you got it?
I probably don't remember where I went, but I remember probably who I was with. My girlfriend Rhonda and I were thick as thieves. And wherever it was I went, she was probably riding shotgun.
I'm with it. Shout out Rhonda. Definitely. You cruising with peoples. You know what I'm saying? It's like riding past the Hamilton stop like, I got wheels now.
Right.
I'm just don't ever do that. Don't ever do that. All right. Next question. You're the DJ at the end of the fireworks, Woodward and Jefferson. You get to play 2 songs. What you playing?
Uh-oh. I'm terrible with knowing song names. I rely on my children for this information.
Okay. Let's see if I can
make
help.
Them. I'm playing something by Stevie Wonder.
Okay. If I would play the song I would play if I'm the DJ and I'm playing a Stevie Wonder song at the end of that, a hit in Detroit and not almost any other place, as DJs have often told me, my eyes don't cry no more because people will be like,
oh hell yeah, that's our song. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, probably shouldn't have said hell.
No,
but,
you can.
Talk
freely.
And the other thing I'm gonna play is something by Aretha Franklin, and it's gonna be a hard choice for me because I love her, and it's hard for me to narrow it down to one. But I'm playing an Aretha Franklin.
If I was the DJ and I love Aretha Franklin, really love the whole, the tab, the ways we even cross paths. So much about the Aretha Franklin story itself, I love. But we playing rock steady because we partying.
Right on. That's a good one.
And then it's like good bass line and everything.
Yeah.
And there you go. Yeah. That was when Aretha, I'm sure she went in the studio like, they don't think I can make some funk. And
in that movie about her, I was so happy. They had that muscle shows. I don't know. I don't like necessarily the way they represented it, but it was real. She was down there recording and they had a guy playing the piano. And then they all took a break. They had done a bunch of takes and she sat down at the piano and played it. And they said, well, we don't need a pianist. Be your own pianist, you know?
Mm.
She was something. She was just something.
Phenomenal, phenomenal. Had a real like short meeting, as you know, I've heard many things, and I'm sure a lot of it is like lessons learned over time. You know what I'm saying? But with Thea Barnes, another one of my godmothers, so they would kind of connect and do stuff together for a while. But between the role her father played, uplifting and providing a lot of opportunities to different people, especially organizing in community. And then even carrying over to her in the role she played in a whole lot of things, you would be surprised, but always gonna get her way. As you know, in reality, I mean, who's not gonna want that? So sometimes I think the stories would go like, "Oh, Aretha was being..." No, you didn't take the patience you should have took. You know what I'm saying? So you should have took with them. Right. Definitely shout out to that family. And the last question: you could rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
I'm gonna name it after Irma Henderson, because we've been naming streets after guys forever, and I want to see some sisters get recognized. And I have to tell you, you know, we're doing that 375 thing where we're pulling it out and we're turning it into another boulevard. And at some point, there's going to be a question of what we should name it. And I'm telling you right now, I'm talking in everybody's ears about naming it Irma Henderson Boulevard. So if I could name Woodward, we definitely will be naming that new street that comes out of the 375 dust. And I think we ought to name it in terms of one of our really, really phenomenal women leaders in the community.
Well, having Orthea Barnes and Joanne Watson as godmothers only put so much into the long list of stories of the role that Irma Henderson shared from them, but so many others. Irma Henderson in Black Bottom, Detroit is a part of like the leadership group bringing Paul Robeson to the city of Detroit. A lot of the like ordinances, like which are city laws, let me study some politics, but like almost like overwhelming majority of the ordinances throughout the city of Detroit are from Irma Henderson's desk. Overwhelmingly, and it even carries over through, you know, one of her girl children, my godmother Joanne Watson, in carrying a lot of that legacy, and even like the leadership of like a Mary Ann Mahaffey working alongside Irma Henderson. You know, the Eyes and Ears campaigns, the whole concept of like you can get $1 house. A lot of this stuff these are like revolutionary ordinances from her office that even reverberate through the state of Michigan. And then like as the county government is like kind of built to life in the 80s, and the federal government too. So a lot of this leadership is known. And also she used to, for years, she did, which I'm sure you were probably attending some of these, but she did these women's conferences where the goal was just like empowering and building networks amongst so many women. So through Irma Henderson, and I remember the birthday where my mother helped Joanne Watson plan and many others. It's like the connections you start seeing, the rest in peace, the Bella Marshalls, you know, and then even like younger people like Kim Trent is there. Like it's so many relationships of women throughout the city of Detroit. You know, Glenda Lewis and like these strong relationships where they're like, man, these Black women know each other. A lot of this is really built from an arc of leadership, even if they're in other associations and places and spaces, because I mean, even today it's sad, but like women are not given the same consideration when it comes to leadership. So like even in a lot of faith-based spaces, like a Shrine of the Black Madonna, you get a Barbara Rose Collins and a Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick that comes in this same arc. And the movement of that leadership is just exalted for so many other opportunities that do exist.
Yeah.
So
Henderson Avenue.
I'm with it. I'm with it. All right. With that being said, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure sitting here talking with you. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Definitely. We definitely bringing you back. You're going to be an annual. Next year, we're going to be talking.
All right.
I'm with it. Peace.
Detroit is different.